दोस्तों क्रिप्टो करेंसी और बिटकॉइन के लेटेस्ट अपडेट के लिए सब्सक्राइब करिए डिटेल टेक चैनल को और बेल आइकन को दबाइए ताकि क्रिप्टो करेंसी और बिटकॉइन रिलेटेड अपडेट आपको टाइम टू टाइम मिलते रहे।
Bitcoin, the newest face of money. Good or bad, a phenomenon that's taken the world by storm.
Bitcoin is exciting because it shows how cheap it can be. Bitcoin is better than currency.
It's about the evolving face of currency, the need for legal tender that straddles geographical divides amid an emerging uncertainty.
आज 500 रुपए और 1000 रुपए के करेंसी नोट लीगल टेंडर नहीं रहेंगे।
But concerns around Bitcoin stare hard. New transaction trail, funding trafficking, betting and terror a clear threat. India warning it's a dangerous Ponzi scheme. Investment or gamble? What? Where? How? Pros and cons getting to the bottom of the Bitcoin sensation.
Good evening, folks. For over a week now, CNN-News18 has been at the forefront of decoding this Bitcoin mania that has gripped India. Why just India? The whole world. Now, in this episode, we'll be talking about the origins of this new age tool in India, the big concerns, the government's confusion. Now, through the day, from our social media platforms, we've been inviting you, the viewer, to connect directly with our expert and ask your questions to the experts. Raise your concerns if you have any. We are going to talk about all that and much more, but first, let's quickly take a look at this presentation prepared by my colleague Shubhajit Sen Gupta. He tries to sum up the Bitcoin mania, or as some would like to say, the Bitcoin enigma. Take a look.
The big disruption for the Indian investors in 2017 was the arrival of Bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies as short-term investment options. As price of a single Bitcoin rose from $1,000 to $19,000 in just a year's time. Till 2016, Bitcoin was the preserve of the geeks, but as price began to rise, it caught the imagination of the investors and thus began this great speculative journey upwards.
Cryptocurrencies fall somewhere between being a payment mechanism and being an asset. So various different jurisdictions across the world have accepted them between either being a payment mechanism or an asset, and this is going to be there for the long term. So cryptocurrencies is going to be an integral part of the currency world going forward. In the next 10 years, most of the people will shift towards cryptocurrencies, and it is a more efficient way of transacting across the world.
But by the end of the year, the value of Bitcoins was down to 12,000 again. This volatility is essentially because Bitcoins don't have any intrinsic value. It is not backed by gold or any other physical asset, nor does it pay any interest or dividend. The currency in India cannot even be used at most places. Currently, these currencies are just used as commodities to be traded frequently.
That's my concern, because it's not currently it's not being backed by any physical attribute. The interface is very weak between the cryptocurrency, Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency, and the conventional currencies.
By December, the focus of many retail investors shifted to the other cryptocurrencies. Many began selling off Bitcoins to buy other cryptos like Ripple and Ethereum, and that's why there was the fall. The motivation again wasn't the technology but the returns that were given out. With Bitcoins already having over 85% of the market share, these other cryptos are trying to capture the space. Thus, often when a new currency with strong fundamentals are hitting the exchange, many are moving away from Bitcoins to these newer ones. Some of these currencies are also promising assets of similar value. But looking into the clamor for digital currency in India and the lack of information about it, the government has also decided to step in. The government has made it clear that cryptocurrencies are not legal tender and have no regulatory permission or protection in the country. A finance ministry statement said, there is a real and heightened risk of investment bubble of the type seen in Ponzi schemes, with investors risking a sudden and prolonged crash.
Both the Reserve Bank of India and the Government of India have consistently maintained a position and have made it public repeatedly that this is not a lawful legal tender in India, and therefore that protection is not available.
The government has also activated its financial investigation wings to check how much of this trading is because of the Hawala transactions which are taking place in the underground economy. In New Delhi, this is Shubhajit Sengupta.
So let's try and understand the Bitcoin phenomenon, just building on what Shubhajit explained in that presentation. Number one, current standing like diamonds, people accept program code as value. So right now, unlike diamonds, people are accepting a value of a program code. So it's a mathematical solution or an algorithm which people are trading in. Now large global companies and corporates have already accepted Bitcoin as currency. So this finds some sort of acceptance across the world. Now it is not complete, but some acceptance. Many say that you can't shoo away this technology, so don't call it a Ponzi scheme, realize its importance. Third, price has risen with the popularity, has reached $17,000 per Bitcoin, though it has come down also, but it keeps fluctuating. And this is the big risk because nobody knows how this is happening. Many people try to decode why and how this happens. Again, they blame it on the algorithm, but nobody knows the exact functioning or when it will go up or when it will come down. 12 million Bitcoins have been mined so far. The maximum limit, and this is what a lot of people say is what is going to give comfort to many people who trade in Bitcoins, that the end figure. It's not like you can mine endless number of Bitcoins. The outer limit. So 12 have been done, 21 have to be mined. 21 million have to be mined so far. Okay, as we told you at the beginning of this broadcast, you too can participate. You can ask your questions if you have any queries, suggestions, and we'll put them directly to our experts who are joining us in the studio. So the first query or concern that has come in is from Siddharth. He asked this question. Let's play it out for our viewers.
Siddhartha from Bombay here. My query with regards to Bitcoin is that what kind of analysis one can do in order to identify which Bitcoins to invest, which Bitcoins to buy, which Bitcoins to sell. Do we have some kind of data points which will help us in this identification?
Okay, so that is Siddharth's question. I want to now quickly introduce Himanshu Verma, employment and economic expert, who's with me in the studio. Hi, Himanshu.
Hi, Sanket.
You heard that concern?
Absolutely.
So, please sit down. So, you heard that concern. What will be your reply to
Sanket, again, it is a very difficult question indeed. Which cryptocurrency a person should invest in. But taking that from a different angle altogether, I would suggest that firstly we need to see, because the question came from an Indian, somebody from our own country. So we need to see that government is not in a mood to legalize it, or maybe we can say they are in a dilemma to legalize it or not to legalize it. So firstly we need to clearly see and keep on following the government's take on the Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as well. In case somebody gets that, the next step he needs to do is to understand what are the different exchanges for getting a cryptocurrency from. So there are many Indian exchanges. I would not take any names, but yes, CoinX, CoinDelta are the few which are the most famous ones. Because I do not want to recommend anything as such. Because what happens is, primarily when a person starts investing through an exchange, what happens is, at some point in time, all of a sudden, that because there are no apps which are there in place in India, everything is being done over a website only, which these particular exchanges have built in. So there is no regulation as such in place. There is no law which is ruling this. So what happens is, on a sudden day when there is a larger traffic or there are more number of people investing, so all of a sudden they stop. They stop as in there are no new registrations, or they say the deposits are not happening, or they also change the mode of the payments, which I have been following since long. So there's no surety as such, so as to what exactly and is the ethical place to invest and to buy a cryptocurrency. Now coming to the cryptocurrency part, you're saying something.
No, I quickly want to introduce another question also, because we are trying to accommodate as many questions as we can. Here is Mayank Jain, who asks another question.
Okay, the question I have is that the distributed ledger is supposed to identify and authorize the accounts which are eligible to pay, transact, receive the bitcoins. The question that comes to my mind is that what is the legitimacy of these accounts? How do you establish that? And how does one know that any accounts or parties which are not authorized to transact in any kind of financial instruments or pay money because they are illegitimate accounts?
Okay, I think that's an important question, and I'll take that one to Vipin Malik, who's the ex-director of Central Board of the RBI. Mr. Malik, would you like to take that one? I think it's a significant question because it talks about, the legitimacy of these accounts.
I think this is one of the biggest fraud scheme going on as on today, because it violates two acts. One is price chit fund money circulation scheme banning 1978, where money circulation schemes, by whatever name it calls, it is banned. Number two is it is violation of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and it is, in my opinion, a money laundering, because none of the either exchanges, the exchanges which were named by my other speaker, or any regulatory approvals which are in place, or I think none of them have applied also. So considering these two acts which are being violated, it is a fraud scheme. So I suggest to everybody that no one should subscribe to, because they will also become part of the money laundering money circulation
but Mr.
scheme,
Malik, I have a follow-up question.
because it is an invitation to the...
Just a follow-up question. You are saying that they will become party to an act of money laundering. I want to know then, why is the government not clarifying its position? As of now, here is a government that says this is an invalid tender, but the government does not move beyond that. And then you have got global experts who are saying this is the future. This technology at least is the future. So I as a person do not know whether I should be investing in it or not. Should I be listening to you, or should I be listening to those who are saying that this is the future? Because many other countries have already legitimized it.
Probably Mr. Arun Jaitley has said in one of his statement that they are examining it, but as on today it is illegal, but the examining process is on. And since examining process is on, you see the government in everything is being examined, and there is always slow pace. But shortly you will see that the law of the land will take very shortly. And the law of the land is that both these acts which I mentioned are being violated, and it is a fraud. Fraud is happening.
Okay, significant. I mean, if you use that word, you're calling it a fraud, then this is a cause of worry, I would say. To all those who are trading, perhaps they have to realize that, in the words of Mr. Malik, this is like indulging in money laundering. So do we have a new age Indian, all those who are accepting bitcoins or trading in bitcoins, indulging in money laundering? And will those relevant sections of the law apply eventually? By extension, are most of these people ignorant about what this actually is, are indulging in money laundering and thus committing a crime? That is the most significant point over here, and I will take that question back to Mr. Malik and Himanshu also. Now, cryptocurrency and particularly Bitcoin, let's take a look at the opportunities. Okay, what are the opportunities and what are the weaknesses, or the flip side, or the risks? The opportunity first. Move towards cashless society in a digital age. Most of the people who are in favor of the Bitcoin say that you want to go cashless, this is the way to go cashless. Number two, answer to a truly international currency, that move over dollar, move over the Chinese currency, the Indian rupee, the Australian dollar or the pound. This is the real global currency. Another opportunity, makes the grind of banking system redundant, because now everything is online. So you have to learn a new age tool, and then everything becomes redundant. All those old tools become redundant. Another opportunity, zero regulation, freedom, absolute freedom to users. Now these are arguments that have been presented by those who feel that bitcoins or cryptocurrency is really the future. Financial traders can make huge profits using this, but they can make huge losses also. Now, volatility can help early bird investors. Now, all this is valid. All those people who are speaking in favor of Bitcoin often tend to give these arguments. Now, the risks one by one. Uncertainty on the future of cryptocurrency. We don't know. We absolutely don't know what it is, and that is why you have a Mr. Malik who is saying that this is fraud, this is money laundering. Number two, ever-present threat of hackers. Losses are irreparable damage, and this is a valid concern because all those exchanges that are operating, they have been hacked in the past. Ban by any large economy will send the value crashing, which means there is so much uncertainty that you may be making huge profits, but you will lose all of it just like this. Challenge to increase in transaction volumes. That is also a big challenge or a risk involved in dealing with Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. And a superior cryptocurrency may replace Bitcoin at any given point. Right now, of course, they control the 85% of the market, of the cryptocurrency market, but there will come a time when, due to competition, because of the open nature of these blockchain technology, you can have some other currency also. So again, there will be a huge risk involved. Now, Radhika Ramaswamy spoke to Akshay Haldipur, a young Bitcoin investor who is also one of the first few Bitcoin millionaires in Mumbai. Listen in.
Akshay, you've been into this for quite some time. So, can you describe to us in layman's language how one can go about investing in Bitcoins and, what are the things to be kept in mind while doing so?
I think a lot of people are, attracted towards this because they think it's more about, the easy money. Well, it has the easy money making factor, but that's just the byproduct of it. What's really important to understand that Bitcoin is more than just the money making aspect. It's more about the technology that it kind of resides on, and that's called the blockchain. So blockchain is something that the companies are talking about, not the individuals, because individuals are just trying to reap the fruits of the technology. If you decide to invest, then you got to be very sure that you know how this thing works. Never to go all in with all your investments. Security is a major issue here because most of the exchanges have been hacked in the past, in the recent past actually, because of which the prices come soaring down. There are a lot of fundamental analysis attached to it because the owner of McAfee announces that he is having certain affinity for one particular coin, and the coin booms overnight. It's like 300% up. So that's something to take into account.
What do you want to tell people out there? What's the mindset one should have before starting investing into Bitcoins, and how should they go about it? What are the steps that they should follow, or what mindset should they be in?
Firstly, you got to enter the game with a plan, right? Just because some of your friends out in a party when they're drunk and they say, oh, I made 10 Bitcoins and you get all blah blah blah. The point is never to invest more than what you can perhaps afford to lose, because what people do is, and which is very wrong, is they end up taking loans from banks just to invest. But because you have never done something like this before, the chances of you losing money is like in a snap, right? So only afford to invest what you can afford to lose is my suggestion to people.
Welcome back. Decoding the Bitcoin is the show you are watching. We are trying to keep this interactive. The next question came on Twitter by Amog. Here is his question.
Hi, I am Amog Suman. I am a computer science graduate from IIT Delhi. I have a very few basic queries for you. Firstly, can you still invest in Bitcoins? And what are the possible projections for its values? Secondly, what are the possible loopholes in Bitcoin algorithm design? And what is it that is making so many cryptocurrencies to float around?
Himanshu, I think that's a relevant question. Absolutely. Possible projections, which means future growth, right? And what are the loopholes?
See, all the projections depend on the affinity and, of course, the legalities which are linked to it. If the government says yes in India, in Indian context, and if we were to go and outside see the global, because this is being led by the global economy as well. I mean the countries which are taking decisions on the Bitcoin. So like Japan, when legalized it in March, April, it surged all of a sudden. and it surged the new heights at that point of time. Then in September it was around 11 exchanges which came in. So it's all on the supply and demand, and of course on the legal status, legal tender of that particular cryptocurrency for this case, which is Bitcoin.
Okay, Vipin Malik, there's one thing that I wanted to ask you beyond Mr. Malik, beyond the question that has been asked. And my specific query is this, sir. Now, through the course of this broadcast that we are carrying out, we also spoke to a few people who said, see, a government can't shut its eyes to this new technology. Then in that case, is it possible, and this was a suggestion, is it possible perhaps for the Indian government to come up with its own cryptocurrency, like many countries have done in the past? That way you will have regulation also.
Well, first let me tell you, and which is very disturbing, that cryptocurrency in India has reached 28.9% of the broad money supply. We have approximately 1.8 trillion broad money in currency in circulation, which is called broad money. So 28.9% of the
that's a huge number
of the total supply is already a very huge number, and it's a very disturbing number. Number two, how you control the terrorism, the money being used by terrorists, how you control the narcotics business, how you control the technology, which we have yet not, you see, even for Bheem, we have not yet reached properly. So I think Reserve Bank of India has already created a subsidiary to look into all these transactions, all these technology transactions, and we are still far away from these new technologies. So we have to wait and watch until that the government has to come very heavily on.
Absolutely, Mr. Malik and Himanshu, then in that case I feel that the government has to do much more than just say that this is a sort of a Ponzi scheme. We're running out of time, but as we end this broadcast, Jordan Belfort, famously known as the Wolf of Wall Street, has some pretty important predictions about the Bitcoin bubble. Listen into what he has to say. Thanks so much for watching.
Why, sir, do you believe it is a fraud when there are real transactions taking place? We'll come to the fact that the volatility in the price in a moment, but real people are using Bitcoins for real transactions.
Well, I think that to label Bitcoin as a fraud, like put an umbrella over the whole thing, it's not what I said. What I said is that the problem I have with the technology, blockchain technology, is that the technology is great, but the people who are getting involved in it right now, so Bitcoin's already had its big run up to where it is right now, right? Well, what's happening is there's all these copycat cryptocurrencies that are going out there, and there's no regulation on the actual level of Bitcoin itself. You're talking, there's futures regulation, but the underlying asset is completely unregulated. It's a dark market, and there's people right now who are using the success of Bitcoin to create these massive pump and dumps with other cryptocurrencies. So I think it's a huge danger right now that people are looking at this as like the next great thing. It's a bubble for sure, and this is the next stage. It's very common that the future is now stage 3. So next stage is now you'll see it really skyrocket. There'll be a short squeeze, and it'll go even higher. And eventually, though, it's going to come caving in. It's almost a guarantee. Here's the bottom line. If you were the most disciplined person, you could really have the discipline to get in and get out. There's probably a short window to make some money. But that's not human nature. It's not psychology. People, they'll get in and they make some money. They want to make more money. And these people have a tendency over, tulip bubble, right? Remember, in the tulip bubble, the beginning of the end was when they started trading futures on tulips. That's how it started to, and that was another move up, and then all of a sudden, bam, it collapses and it's all over.